my fiance had never seen it, and I was like, hey, let's watch it together. I watched it when I was 16, and I thought it was kind of dumb, but I just couldn't understand it. And I was like, whoa, I can understand this! Like that. So I don't know how people do it that don't speak Russian, because I think I watched the whole thing being like, what is going on in this movie? I have no idea. So.
And in the book, it actually has a little dictionary in the back where
the movie doesn't
translates molecule or horror show and all that. So anyhow, that was cool, and the idea of using literature to really give you a better idea of the culture.
It's funny that you mentioned the cherry orchard, because that was my senior project in my Russian class. I translated it from Russian to English. Wow. It was awful. It's a very existential play of just kind of like adults being like, it's like Waiting for Godot. It's kind of out there. Does anybody else have any more questions?
Can I make a brief announcement and then have a question to follow up with? My name is Samuel Bulow. I'm an anthropologist, and I'm hoping to start my next project on the relationship between Kazakhstan and Los Alamos in terms of nuclear material. If anybody has any involvement in any of that and would be interested in speaking with me in further capacity, I would love that. But I also wanted to ask about nostalgia and the sort of post-Soviet nostalgia for the Soviet Union, and if you've encountered, we're familiar with that literature and stuff? Or?
I think I very recently read that communism still polls, like the Communist Party still polls at over 50% popularity. When it comes time to vote, they don't frequently seem to vote for them, but that the idea of communism, at least, still polls over 50% and is actually rising again. I think, Russia has had such a difficult time economically since the fall of the Soviet Union. I mean, the 90s in Russia were brutally poor. And so, I can't imagine that there wouldn't be some like, man, at least remember when the government gave me a house? Like, it wasn't a good house, but at least I had a house. And then the other thing too is just like the oligarchs coming in and buying so much. I know that Moscow is becoming, the same as a lot of major U.S. cities, or major world cities, it's just becoming too expensive for a lot of people to live in, and they're really getting pushed out. So, and I think that actually speaks to why Putin is so popular, because he harkens back. He's an ex-KGB agent. He really reminds people, I think, of that paternal figure, like a premier in the Soviet Union, that will take care of you, that will make sure you're okay. And so that's, in terms of just pure nostalgia, there's so many interesting internet forums out there where people are still obsessed with weird stuff that's total, people think the moon landing was fake. People think that the USA MK Ultra'd a bunch of Soviet scientists and programmed them to totally not be good at making nuclear weapons. There's a lot of that, and then obviously.
Do they think we affected their election?
But yeah, it's. But in terms of, when I think of nostalgia, I think of millennial nostalgia, where it's just oh my gosh, remember this TV show we watched? And I don't think that's, as big of a deal there. Remember Cheburashka, remember whatever. People like the guy, but he's a little cartoon character that looks like Mickey Mouse. People like him, but I think that America still wins for just cranking that nostalgia up to 11.
Yes.
I was just wondering, what books or authors you might know that sort of flew under the radar of subtly challenging communism.
Subtly challenging communism?
I'm assuming you have to do it subtly or you're
under the
killed.
radar.
The book that I read that I most was shocked that it wasn't censored was Moscow to the End of the Line, which is, it's a more personal story about a guy who just gets really drunk and he rides the train from Moscow to the end of the line, and he reflects on his life, but it is a very, very, very sad story that is very reflective of a huge problem in Russia, which is alcoholism. And and the author was very anti-Soviet government. And I was really shocked that that was not censored in any capacity. I think one that flew under the radar here is Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who wrote The Gulag Archipelago and Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. He didn't fly under the radar in Russia for that, but I wish more people would read these books and talk to them about me, or talk to them with me about them, sorry. classes on Soviet literature, and I just found that so many of them are at least, partially about communism, even if it's a book about like a werewolf running around Moscow. But in terms of being outright critical, Invitation to a Beheading, that's pretty critical. It's like a Kafka-esque book. It's about bureaucracy and Invitation to a Beheading. If you buy it, don't read the back.
Okay.
The only American printing of this book, the only one in English, tells you how it ends on the back. Like, that's the first line, is like, this happens at the end, and I'm like, why? Rip the back off if you get it. Just don't even read it. I will give you my email, and I will meditate on this, and I will send you.
They're great titles.
Okay.
Good start, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.